Hi guys, what's going on? And welcome back to another episode of Total War Arena. So today we are taking a look at the Harii Painted Warriors, one of the new Tier 6 premium units that's recently been released in the premium shop. As far as I'm aware, it's not actually available in the tech tree, although I'll just check that now. No, it's not. I think it's only one that you can buy through the premium shop. It's got an option, you can buy it on their own, just as the unit, or there's some option with some gold and premium day bundles as well, and things like that. But yeah, it was a requested unit to have reviewed, and I'm really quite enjoying the Barbarians, particularly versus Getrix at the moment, so I thought it seemed like quite a good opportunity to give these guys a bit of a try out. Yeah, so what are they all about? They're basically like just a very light Barbarian infantry. As the name suggests, they are indeed painted. They painted themselves in like black paint. Obviously have very little armour, which we can see in the stats. The body armor 110, which is pretty low for this game, and they have really low missile block, things like that. Only 23, even with shields. That missile block is almost as low as Falksmen, which have no shields at all, so that's going to be a bit of a problem with them. Good things that they do have is their mobility. Really nice base movement speed 4.4, which I'm running with a consumable to take them to 4.8 base, which is nice. That's a good amount of speed for a unit like that. And they get a couple of abilities. They obviously get the classic Barbarian Charge, Harass, which is the same basically on all the Barbarian Infantry and Falksmen. They get this, which is nice, Intimidate, with a 15 morale debuff. That's quite nice, because they get quite a high, I don't know if it'll show on here, flanking damage modifier. So when they, morale flank damage 80, which is pretty high for a unit this type. So if you can start to get on the flanks of your enemy units with this unit, and then start to be making use of Intimidate as well, there's a reasonable chance you're going to be able to get enemies to rout pretty quickly, I think. So that may play out quite nicely. And they also get a classic Striker Slam, which is just one of the strikes that was introduced to across all the Barbarian infantry. So it's just sort of a standard one. Consumable choice wise, personally for me, I didn't think there's that much choice. I'm not that much of a fan of these short-term buffs. I prefer the sort of more base static buffs. I think I've got enough to worry about as it is normally in a battle without having to worry about activating an extra consumable. And then it comes down to what you're picking. So Feast, 4 melee defense, melee attack and penetration. You see weapon damage is fine, but personally I think melee attack is far more important than weapon damage, because there's no point having a good amount of weapon damage if you can't actually land the hits, which is what melee attack allows you to do. So then it comes down to Spar or Swear Oaths. Both do impact damage, and both have the +5 melee attack. So it's either +5 shield armor or 7% movement speed. Well, these units aren't about prolonged engagement. They're not about being strong or good in a fight. They're about their mobility. So it seems better to accentuate that sort of strength than to try and work on getting their defense up. So, we're just going to pop out of the game now and take a look at a website which has got some more details on the stats of these, which I think you might all find fascinating anyway, so I shall see you all in a second. So, we've just popped over to this website, basically called Total War Compare. It's a new website someone's recently set up, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. Basically, it's just a website that allows you to compare the stats of equivalent tier units. I'll put a link to it down in the description below, so I recommend you really go and have a look. It's quite good fun if you're looking at which premium units to get, or if you're looking at heading down a certain tech tree so you can see things later on. But for this case, let's go into the infantry section. And then obviously we are at tier 6 with the Harii Painted Warriors. So as we can see, we basically get all the infantry units available at tier 6. It gives them a unit weight, medium, heavy, light, etc., based on, obviously the Roman armoured legionaries of the heavy infantry, and over here the Harii Painted Warriors, obviously very much the light infantry. And we get a full, nice, clear breakdown of the stats that each of these units have, which is great because it allows you to easily compare and contrast compared to in the game when you're trying to switch between the different options, and in game it's not very easy to do. So first thing we can see, this is probably the most important statistic in my opinion, is the melee attack. Isn't all that high when you compare to other units, but then it's not so bad either if we compare it to, say, to the tier 6 Carthaginian infantry. We're at 98. But obviously we're down on the Romans, and also we're pretty down on penetration damage for the weapons. Obviously they were light infantry with just light swords, so it's kind of understandable, but when you compare it to like the Falksmen, which gets 79 penetration, we're obviously down at 22, is pretty low, and I think it's going to make them quite hard to use effectively against some of the Roman units with their heavy armour. We can continue down. Really, weapon damage, it's a little down, compared to some of the other units, which is understandable again. They're a light infantry unit. You wouldn't really expect them necessarily to do the same, and they're a premium unit as well. And I think the general idea is that premium units are going to be that little bit worse than standard units. So we keep following them down. Missile block chance. This is a bit of a problem, I think. It's just so shockingly low. But I don't really get why they've done it quite like this. You know, it's comparable with the Falconsmen have no shields at all, and these guys do have shields. And while they're light on body armor, I think they've gone a little bit over the top with that missile block chance. It's going to make these guys really vulnerable to archers. They're just going to take so much damage. It's going to be like Falconsmen, really vulnerable to slingers, all that sort of thing. Perfectly engageable in a fight, compared to when look at some of the Romans and stuff, which get sort of around 50. Even some of like the unarmored gladiators and things like that get much higher. So I wish they'd made that a little bit higher. It's a bit of a letdown in my opinion. Bleed defense, stuff like that. Again, a little bit low. It seems to be the general theme with these guys. Everything's just that little bit low. Body armor, obviously, very low. Bar the gladiators, obviously, which have little to no armor either. But we do quite well once we get onto the mobility section of things. Firstly, they have a really nice view range, which is good. Makes them effective in forests, things like that, because you get that extra visibility. And they obviously move very quickly. Good base movement speed, 4.4. And as I was showing you earlier, with the consumable, that puts it to a base of 4.8, which is pretty nice. They obviously have a very high turn speed and a good acceleration rate. So they're going to feel like they respond quickly and move well, which is going to make them quite effective in forests at things, particularly with flanking. Because as we pointed out earlier, their flanking damage is pretty high. It's actually the highest of all tier 6 infantry units, which is good. That's a nice addition. So yeah, they're going to be like that light flanking unit, trying to get those routes. I think that's really how they're going to have to be played. But anyway, enough for sort of statting. Let's hop into the game and see how we get on in the battle. So we're loading into the battle to Teutoburg Forest. Looks like we've got pretty even spread of matchmaking from sort of tier 4 up to me at tier 6. Although there's not that many tier 6s. We've got some slingers on our team. Hopefully there's none on the enemy team. Not exactly the map I would have picked for these guys. These guys obviously, being barbarians and being light mobile infantry, I think would be really good in forest environments and kind of a bit thin and scattered forests around this map. But we'll see how we get on. We'll perhaps have a look at going down here. But we've got quite a bit of movement speed, 4.8 remember with these guys, so we can move around the map relatively easily without worrying too much, I think. Let's just move up for the start. Obviously they all have unformed movement. They look pretty cool, I've got to say. I'm quite a fan. Looks like we're going to have some light artillery setting up around here, which is fine, along with the slingers as well, which makes sense for them. We've got some enemy Greek cavalry scouting from the start. Doesn't look like we've got a lot, if anything, going down this side of the map, so I don't really want to be the person to lead that valiant charge, to be honest, so I think we'll bravely run away, particularly if we're going to be having hoplites and Romans going down there. This is going to be more of a defensive position, which isn't really suited to these guys' skill set. Looks like we're having a lot more of a push down this side of the map, so I think that's where we're going to go. What have we got in the centre? Just some spears and a few swords. Looks like these light artillery are nicely set up here. Oh, they're just out of range of those Romans. It's turned into a bit of a run to get to a battle for the start of the map. I'd rather you went up the top bit. Like that. So yeah, so obviously we have that good movement speed. We obviously lost a little bit of speed to the terrain modifier because I think we had about a 4.8 base movement speed in the when we were looking at the stats in the bottom of the game. Okay, looks like we're getting engaged pretty heavily over here already. We've got our elephants have just gone straight in. So come on guys, let's get your movement on. Our slingers are getting some nice early shots. It doesn't look like the enemy has got a lot in the way of ranged, which is actually perfect for us, exactly what we want. I realise this is a bit of a dull start to the game to watch because we're going so slowly. I could use that charge, but I'll probably end up hitting a cliff as I go past and I'll end up doing damage to myself. Maybe we can get round. So we've got some armoured legionaries. They're tier 6 Romans. I don't think we really want to be facing them. Not if there's any number of them. If we can take on them individually, then it's possible. They are Germanicus infantry as well. Yeah, you see, I don't want to be taking on 3 units of Romans head-on on open ground. That's not going to be favourable conditions for me at all. I'm probably going to pull into this forest, actually. One, because it will give me the mobility buff. When I'm in a forest, I get 25% melee attack and defence. So if they want to fight me there, that's fine. And secondly, because it splits them up and it drags them onto my more friendly forces. You see, this back unit here on its own, I would be more inclined to fight. But I'm actually probably going to try and break through these fences here, actually. Would be my initial inclination, I think. Although our base is under attack by quite a lot. We're just going to have a game of running around, I fear. Okay, let's actually pull back and go up here. Because we're going to end up losing to capping at this rate. Our light artillery is doing a good job of providing support. We've got these principes in a forest, which I would be prepared to fight, I think. Particularly if they're going to fight in a forest for me. And we've got some support from the slingers. So let's try and get these guys in a fight. This guy's making the mistake of one is in range of the view tower, and even if he wasn't, he's standing too close to the edge of the forest, so we could be able to see him anyway. I'd rather fight him in the forest than outside the forest. We'll take a bit of damage there from the pillars. Our low missile block chance coming into play there, obviously, as well as we run sideways on. Okay, I'm going to have to engage him with one. Okay, so let's get those guys into a fight and drag these two round. With luck, he's going to sort of plough everyone into that fight like that. Let's get these guys on and defianced. It's obviously exactly what we want. Try and get some damage on them. And then try and bring the rest of this fight around. If he's going to run into the forest, that'll be lovely for me. Okay, we lost a little bit on the heavy infantry charge there. So we're chasing off these guys. Let's roar them so they rout, which they do. And then let's come back round behind that guy to get those guys to rout. This guy we're going to activate Defiance to try and get him to hold out a little bit. Then we want to get these two guys right back round as quickly as we can into the rear. He's gone for vengeance, but I'm hoping that with this we're going to be able to get him to rout. Let's get one into his flanks. And one into his rear. Let's get a... We'll have a slam, but that's not quite what I want. I want a roar. It should be enough to get into rout, which it is. You see, so that 50... Oh no, he's recovered. Come on, you should be routing. Why be you not routing? Let's use our slam. Obviously, he's got vengeance activated. I'm really surprised he hasn't routed, to be honest. Try another roar, but it's just not. He's not getting. There we go. Minus 60. There we go. We got him. We had a bit of a trouble getting him to rout, but we got the man in the end. So obviously that is a lower tier unit, but he did have vengeance, and you know that was a combination of sort of forest and open fighting, and hopefully that sort of shows the maneuverability of these guys a little bit, which is kind of where I think they come into their own. So we're going to try. Obviously, we're being threatened here. I want to get these engaged with sort of as fewer. It's going to be a pain here. Let's try and. I need to get round these guys, not fighting them on. Oh, they're running through. Don't do that. Fight them, not run through them. Okay, we're getting caught into an unfavourable fight here. Let's activate Defiance on him, see if we can get a bit of damage up on that guy. Okay, we've got around this guy a little bit, so we should be able to equip a bit of damage. That really didn't go quite very well. One of my units, I accidentally must have clicked past him and he was trying to run through the hoplite, which is obviously never a good thing to be doing. Thankfully, I think we just outnumber him sufficiently that he's not been able to really do that much to us. And we're just able to overwhelm him. Defiance obviously works well because it means your people stay alive for that long enough. It's not be a problem. If we're not, let's roar him. And there we go, he's definitely dead. Now, okay, so what are our options? Is our base safe? No, so let's head back to base. We've still got one unit in pretty good health, which is Vercingetorix's unit, which is our commander still alive, which is great. So let's get up this hill. What have we got to face off against? Some hoplites, 2 units of hoplites, 3 units. Quite a lot of good health hoplites there, so let's try and get in there a bit quickly. It looks like we've got most of our allied units are now coming back to base, but they're mostly comprised of archers and stuff. Which is actually quite good for a base defence, really. Let's see what we can do. It seems no point fighting this guy unless we have to. My current thought is if we can get in and get a nice flame back into the rear of these guys, that would just be perfection, wouldn't it? We're going to go with all 3 flames at once, and we're going to go like there. He's going to retreat into it. Oh! We got charged by this guy, but he's just going to rout straight away, which he did. Nice. So, let's think about flanking. We've got quite a bit of damage there on those guys with the flames, actually. Let's have a look. Are these guys still in vengeance? Nope. So, let's get in there. One of them's routed already. Let's roar him, and he's routed. Cool. Right, so we've got 2 units of hoplites left to deal with. We've got some cavalry with us, a few units of damaged hoplites, and lots of ranged units. So let's get moving up to the back of the map. We've had a pretty nice game so far. It's the mobility of these guys I like. Even though they don't have they're not stupidly fast in a straight line, it's the fact that they move and respond so quickly, they accelerate quickly, and that high flanking damage, particularly with that little bit of roar as well, just to top it off when you need it, makes them pretty good. I'm a big fan. Because I feel like when I was explaining the stats, they look pretty poor, I think. They look like sort of units that aren't a lot of good. I don't know if they're even turning on us, are they? There we go. Now they're in hoplite phalanx. This is going to be a little bit more painful, but we'll go there. Straight into Defiance mode, which obviously has silenced us, so maybe we should have used our roar prior to entering Defiance. Because we're going to take a bit of damage here, but it's the end of the game, so let's just get in as many kills as we can while it's all an option. Got some friendly support moving in. Let's just kill what we can, guys. We're taking a fair bit of damage. It's not a very favourable fight. We'll use our battle cry. Obviously I shouldn't be using 3 at once, I should use them individually. But there we go, it helps to make one route. There we go, and now we've got enough to flank these guys. And there goes the last one of those guys. Brilliant. Okay, so our base is now safe. The enemy, we've got a few sort of straggling units left alive, but not a lot. So let's get back moving through, see if we can get any more kills. I suspect our ranged units are probably going to finish these guys off before I get there. Wow. Oh god, that poor guy. He's still alive. I can't believe he's still alive. Oh, there he goes. Finally, after being pelted with about 1,000 stones, he's dead. So they've got a couple of sword units left. I don't think they're going to have a great deal of health though. Obviously, it was a bit of quite a lot of movement at the start of the game, but as I say, that relatively high movement speed, it gets to over 5 when you're on the road, really allows you to sort of pick and choose where you want to fight. I think if I was with the Roman heavy infantry at the start of the match and started over here, I wouldn't really have been able to run all the way over to this side of the map, run through there, and then come all the way back up to base. I'd have had to stick with the side I sort of picked, really, which would have been an unfavourable fight. So, yeah, so the mobility does come into it perhaps more than it's initially possible to realise, because that sort of ability to pick and choose where you want to fight is kind of pretty important. So it's not all about sort of combat stats. You know, their mobility does come into it a lot as well. Well, who knows where those enemy swordsmen have gone. We'll use our charge just to gain a little bit of ground. But yeah, I'm certainly a fan of that little roar. Intimidate is a nice little ability. I think that's something that we get on the Barbarian infantry as well. At some of the higher tiers. I know at tier 7 you get the Andorra, something that the tier 7 they get a proprietary unit roar as well, which is pretty cool. So let's just run up this hill. Try and get a few cat points. We've got a 3k aggression damage, so that's not been too bad a game. Oh, there they are, and they're going to get bombarded by by stones. Yes, and it looks like we're going to get in for the cap as well. If we can just gain a few cap points. I can't be asked to chase after them, they'll be dead by the time I get my units over there. There we go, we can manage to squeeze in a few cap points out of this whole thing as well. Looks like some of our infantry are determined to get involved in the fight. And there we go, victory for the game. Excellent. Well, that wasn't too bad a game. Hopefully you've enjoyed that as sort of a bit of a unit review. Looks like the Sullas were performing well in that game. Let's see how we do in terms of silver and free experience, because obviously being a premium unit, it gets a bonus to that. So bear in mind, this was my first victory of the day with Vercingetorix, so you know, that's times 2. So, but there's still a pretty good amount of free experience, 1500 free experience, from a reasonable game, a 4.3k score point game. It's pretty reasonable, but not a super amazing game or anything. So yeah, and we make an awful lot of silver, 47,000 silver. Obviously there is no restock with these guys because they are a premium unit, so they're free. The only expenses are the consumables, which obviously you should always be running with consumables anyway, but particularly with a premium unit. And this slight little bit of friendly fire. I must have burnt a few allied units with my Scorched Earth. Oh, and we've hit level 61. So yes, all in all, I'm quite a fan of these guys. I think their mobility makes them quite nice. don't get stuck into a prolonged engagement. You know, if you fight Romans head on, you're going to really struggle. I know I took on those Principes, but they were a combination of sort of walking in the forest and making use of the scorched earth to sort of channel them where I wanted them to go, which sort of enabled it to play out quite nicely. And sort of a little bit of forest fighting as well, which gave me that melee attack and defense bonus, which sort of enabled me to sort of overwhelm them. So hopefully you've enjoyed this unit review. If you have, please can you give the video a like, it really does help. Subscribe to the channel for lots more Total War Arena content, and thanks guys, I shall see you all on the next episode.